Hooking up with a hunk is nothing new for JLo. Since arriving on the Hollywood scene in the early 90s, the multi-platinum singer and A-list actress always had a man at her side. The Cuban waiter, the rap mogul, the backup dancer, the leading man, and now the Latin pop star.
And on June 5th, just 4 days after finalizing his divorce to former Miss Universe, Dayanara Torres, and 4 months after her split with an ambivalent Affleck, Jennifer Lopez became Mrs. Marc Anthony. The couple remains mum on details surrounding their surprise union.
The world was stunned somehow. Are we ever stunned, really?
I don't know if the marriage is going to last. I would hope so, but her track record is not really very positive.
In September 2003, Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck were set to walk down the aisle, but 3 days prior to their nuptials, they called off their wedding. At the time, the couple blamed excessive media attention surrounding their wedding as the reason for their postponement. Having been together a little over a year, Jennifer and Ben would receive constant scrutiny from the media and public, and according to the couple, that pressure would eventually take a toll on their relationship. But Ben and Jen's romance would not only be tried in the court of public opinion, but allegedly within their inner circle. According to news media outlets, prior to Ben and Jen calling off their wedding, some of their loved ones questioned their relationship and voiced their concerns after reports came out that allegedly detailed components of Ben and Jennifer's prenup. The Daily Mail reported that in their prenup, Jennifer requested a no cheating clause after Ben enjoyed a night out at an exotic nightclub prior to their wedding. An insider of the couple told the Daily Mail the following, quote, "Jennifer is not after Ben's money. She had plenty of her own, but what she does want is for Ben to give her some guarantee that he will never cheat again. By doing it this way, she can save face by taking matters into her own hands and laying down the law. It's a smart way for her to take control and not look like the woman scorned. Ben agreed to the clause because he got scared it would be over between them. He's told her he will never set foot in a strip club and will never again attend parties that might turn wild without her." In addition to the no cheating clause, Jennifer allegedly had a rule in the prenup that required Ben to be intimate with her 4 times a week. The Daily Mail stated if Ben did not uphold these clauses, Jennifer would be entitled to half of his money. A source told the Daily Mail the following, quote, "The prenuptial agreement is to protect both their assets and says that if they do split, they keep their own money except if Ben cheats. Then the prenuptial becomes void. That means the divorce will be done the normal Californian way, with Jennifer being entitled to up to half of Ben's earnings." Upon news detailing Ben and Jennifer's alleged prenuptial agreement, reports began to emerge that Ben's mother, his brother, Casey Affleck, and best friend, Matt Damon, disapproved of his relationship as they found Jennifer to be, quote, "controlling, manipulative, and bad for Ben's career." But it's important to note that in a 2003 interview with Vanity Fair, Ben denied that a prenup existed, saying, quote, "There is no prenup. You can't legislate behavior. You've got to believe in the person and believe you can meet the challenges you face. Neither of us are stupid or naive. It would be nice if you could have the rules, but you just can't write it down. I don't believe in the French model of marriage. I believe in monogamy and making it work, because otherwise, what's the point?" Ben would go on to say that despite tabloids running reports that his family and friends disapproved of Jen, those rumors couldn't be further from the truth. When Ben and Jen called off their wedding in September 2003, as a result of constant media scrutiny, they would receive immediate backlash as many believed that the postponement of their wedding had more to do with, quote, their bizarre prenup, Ben's alleged infidelity at the strip club, reports that his loved ones didn't support their relationship, and the fact that his engagement to Jennifer Lopez significantly affected his career.
Sexy, exotic, famous.
It was sort of the dapper Ben Affleck dating Jenny from the block.
The two are engaged in November of 2002, and the media frenzy onslaught that would later become known as Benifer unleashes.
We cared about their every move, where they vacationed, what they wore, how much spray tan Ben Affleck was getting. It was a really intense point in his life, and he sort of started to morph into something that wasn't the Ben we knew.
Is that right?
Not only is the film title JLo tricky to pronounce, it proves even more difficult to get audiences to actually see it. The movie doesn't just flop, it bombs.
What do you want me to do?
And it's just one in a series of movies between 2003 and 2004 that Affleck would probably like to forget.
What happened?
Paycheck, Jersey Girl, Surviving Christmas all failed to give him the hit he so desperately needs.
Nothing was going right. He didn't have the best career in Hollywood, so someone who at one point was Hollywood's golden boy, their next big movie star, seemed to be just fizzling away.
Affleck is becoming the butt of countless jokes.
This is a real thing. Thank you very much. Yes, they were pleased with JLo, I understand. We swept the rise for JLo and Pearl Harbor. I'm not the bad guy.
One bright spot during this stretch, the action hero flick, Daredevil.
Nice to meet you, Matt Murdock.
Nice to meet you.
It co-stars Jennifer Garner, a leading lady who later plays a pivotal role in the actor's personal and professional redemption. At the same time, trouble's brewing on the Benifer front. The couple cancels their fall 2003 wedding. Affleck spoke to Larry King about the difficult split.
You know, sometimes it's as simple as one person breaking up with somebody else, and sometimes it's more complicated than that.
It was a massive personal thing that blew up in Hollywood and really blew up in Ben's face.
Ben and Jennifer's postponement announcement shocked the media. With news that their wedding had been called off, Ben and Jen's relationship hung in the balance. Though this was an uncertain period in Jennifer's life, she would find her way back to someone familiar. Just 3 days after calling off her wedding, Jennifer reunited with an ex-lover, Latin sensation Marc Anthony. As mentioned in part 1, Jennifer first met Marc back in March of 1998 when she went to his Broadway show, The Cape Man. According to Jennifer, upon meeting Marc backstage, he told her that he was going to marry her. Marc was enamored with Jennifer after having seen her in the 1997 movie Selena. Intrigued by the actress, Marc asked Jennifer to star in his music video No Me Conoces, and in turn, he would do a duet with Jennifer titled No Me Ames to be featured on her debut album.
Tell us how you started working with Marc, how it came to be.
It came to be because I was recording in the studio, and Marc Anthony happened to be recording in the studio also, and he came over to specifically ask me to do this video with him, which was one of his salsa songs. And he said, would you do this video with me? And I said, okay, but you have to do a song on my album. And he said, absolutely.
And we're talking about one of my best friends, and I'm so proud of her. And I love the album. She's so cute. She's like, I'm number one. Like, what does that mean? I'm like, shut up. It sold this much in the first week. Is that good? I'm like, shut up. She's just so adorable that way.
So at that time, I called Tommy Mottola and I'm like, so look, Marc Anthony said he'll do a song. And I really if I'm going to do a duet with anybody, I really want to do it with him. So, can you force him to sign something that'll say he has to do a record with me if I do this video? I did his video. And then after that, he came and recorded this song. He said he had an idea for this song, this old Italian song. He wanted to translate it. And while we were recording the song, I came up with the concept for a video. I asked him if he liked it, and I actually explained it to him and Tommy at the same time another day that we were in the studio after the song was recorded, and they both loved it, and so we shot that.
And in April of your whirlwind year, you get to go on stage at Madison Square Garden
with Marc Anthony. Yeah, my first performance.
What's that about?
He did a couple of songs, and then he brought me on, and we did No Mamas, and it was, that whole day I was a wreck. Like, I was a wreck for the first part of the day, and then once we did sound check, and I was out there on the stage, and it sounded great, and everything was okay, then it was cool.
So do you remember that feeling of stepping out on the stage in front of the 50,000
Yeah, no, I stepped out. I was just waiting for him. He was starting to introduce me, and then the people saw me standing there waiting before I went up on the stage, and they started, yelling, Jennifer. So I just felt all that love, and I was like, oh, these are my people. You know what I mean? So it felt good. Then I was like, oh, it's all love in here, so it's okay.
Jennifer and Marc's relationship would go beyond a working one, as the two began dating in the spring of '99. But despite Marc falling in love with Jennifer, their romance would be short-lived, because by that summer, Jennifer would drop Marc and move on with Diddy, who had helped her produce her debut album. Despite moving on in their love lives, Jennifer and Marc remained friends and stayed in contact over the years. Upon calling off her wedding to Ben Affleck in 2003, a distraught Jennifer would find comfort in Marc, who was waiting for her with open arms. In her 2014 memoir, True Love, Jennifer writes, quote, Marc and I had been friends for a number of years. We'd worked together on a few songs, and we'd sung a duet together for my first record. Right from the beginning, he never made it a secret that he liked me. He was warm and funny, a brilliant singer, an artist who knew how to make me feel special. But the best thing about him, the thing that I loved the most, was that no matter what, he always knew how to make me laugh. I had always liked Marc, finding comfort in his humor and his easy way with people. He was confident and strong. He was so sure of everything. And at this moment, when I felt so lost, so broken, and alone, there he was.
Well, Marc showed up.
Marc
showed up.
But Marc had been in my life for a while.
And I didn't know this, but there's a quote in there. It says in 1998, when you first met, that Marc said to you, the first time he met you, one day you're going to be my wife.
Yeah, he said, you're my wife and you don't even know it. One day you're my wife. I was like, okay. I was so like, that's a heavy duty pickup line. Like that's, you know what I mean? I met him backstage at a play and stuff. And I was with my dad. I was like, okay.
So how did you get reconnected with him, and why did that feel like the right thing at that time?
We got reconnected a few months. Again, Ben and I were already on the rocks and breaking up, and he and I got together to do a song together for a movie I was doing. And, we reconnected right away, and he made it wasn't a secret that he still had feelings for me, and he let me know. And so when everything did fall apart, like he was the friend I had already been talking to him. I talked to him over the years all the time. And so when that happened,
For Jennifer, Marc was a shoulder to cry on, someone she could lean on during this difficult time. Though she hadn't completely ended things with Ben, according to Jennifer, she began to see Marc as more than a friend. But Jennifer and Marc's friendship would be problematic due to the fact that Marc Anthony was a married man. According to Marc's then wife, Jennifer's interference in their marriage created a host of problems. At the time, Marc Anthony was married to former Miss Universe Dayanara Torres. The couple wed in 2000 and had 2 sons together. According to reports, Marc and Dayanara had a rocky relationship, and after just 2 years of marriage, the pair split in the summer of 2002. But by that winter, Marc and Dayanara would reconcile and renew their vows. According to Dayanara, all was well until Jennifer called off her wedding to Ben in September 2003. Dayanara claims that when that happened, Jennifer began calling their home looking for Marc. As she puts it, Jennifer's presence in Marc's life drove her and her husband apart. According to reports, 1 month after Jennifer and Ben called off their wedding, Marc Anthony and his wife, Dayanara, would split. It was October 2003, and hearts were broken. For the remainder of that year, Ben and Jennifer would attempt to work on their relationship, but with reports coming out that Ben was seeing other women and that Jennifer was allegedly hanging out with Diddy, their relationship floundered. By January 2004, Benifer was over. After having separated in October 2003, Dayanara Torres filed for divorce from Marc Anthony in the same month that Ben and Jen officially called it quits.
Saber que toda mi vida soñé con casarme, con tener una familia. Uno como mujer confía en que las cosas van a cambiar. ¿Qué te puedo decir? Es un dolor horrible. Y sí, estuve en mi casa en tiempos en que no quería salir, no quería hablar con nadie, no quería ver a nadie, no quería contestar el teléfono. Wow. Bien fuerte. Pero...
¿Qué sucedió que tú saliste de ese hueco, mamacita? ¿Cómo te saliste de ese hueco? ¿Por qué?
Fue un día bien importante para mí. Estoy en mi cuarto, en mis pijamas, llorando. Y oigo afuera de la puerta a Cristian llorando y decía...
A tu niño, el mayor.
Me decía, o lo oía decir, I want mama. Y le abren la puerta, él entra y me mira. Mama, you crying again?
¿Estás llorando otra vez, mamá?
Y me quedo así mirando, no sé ni qué decirle. Me dice, don't cry, mom. Y me limpia así la lágrima y me dice, we're gonna be fine.
Vamos a estar perfectos.
Y yo dije, ya, ¿qué estoy haciendo?
For Dayanara, the dissolution of her marriage was devastating, and it was even more painful to know that her husband and father of her children was in love with another woman. When news broke that Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck had officially parted ways, Jennifer would briefly retreat and take a step back. According to her, Ben was the love of her life, and the fact that things didn't work out left her feeling broken. But despite the pain that Jennifer was experiencing, Marc Anthony would be there to help pick up the pieces. Not long after her split from Ben, Jennifer would be spotted out and about with the Latin artist. Though reps for Jennifer and Marc never confirmed they were dating, by May, Jennifer was sporting a new diamond ring after having returned the pink one Ben gave her. On June 5th, 2004, just 4 days after Marc's divorce from Dayanara was finalized, Marc and Jennifer married. In her book, Jennifer writes, quote, "We make our own choices, and I chose to believe that Marc and I were meant to be together, that destiny was stepping in. In that moment, I needed to believe in something. The reality was, I didn't want to be alone. So when Marc was there, when he met me with his big smile, his heart on his sleeve, and his arms open wide, I was more than happy to let myself fall into them. I had always liked him, but now that he was coming to my rescue in my time of need, he was my knight in shining armor, and I realized I loved him too. This had to be the start of my fairy tale." Jennifer and Marc wed on June 5th, 2004, in a surprise ceremony at Jennifer's house in Beverly Hills, California. According to reports, their guests were completely caught off guard when they arrived at Jennifer's home thinking that they were attending an afternoon barbecue. Little did they know that they would witness Jennifer and Marc getting married. People.com writes, late Saturday afternoon, Jennifer Lopez stunned the showbiz world by marrying singer Marc Anthony in a casual ceremony at her Beverly Hills home. Lopez's publicist neither confirmed nor denied the wedding, but witnesses at the scene reported seeing Lopez in a wedding gown. A tent was erected earlier in the day. The property was bedecked with balloons and musicians could be heard playing Vivaldi's Four Seasons during the afternoon. The marriage, Lopez's third, comes just months after her whirlwind relationship with Ben Affleck. She had yet to even publicly acknowledge a romance with Anthony, an old flame. Lopez's family was in town from New York. A source said Lopez, quote, had invited everyone to her house for a beautiful afternoon party, but none of them knew she planned on getting married. It was a surprise. Despite Lopez's reluctance to go public with her romance to Anthony, the pair are in love, and according to a source, Jennifer looked beautiful.
Marc and Jennifer first worked together in 1998.
Dime por qué lloras de felicidad.
On one of his music videos, so they've known each other for a good 6 years. Jennifer's friends say that he has been pining for her forever.
She understands him. She knows his family, his roots, his history, his music. That translates into a very calm, very legitimate type relationship, whereas on paper, in Hollywood, you're like, Marc Anthony, what's that about?
And on June 5th, just 4 days after finalizing his divorce to former Miss Universe Dayanara Torres, and 4 months after her split with an ambivalent Affleck, Jennifer Lopez became Mrs. Marc Anthony in a quiet wedding at her California home. The couple remains mum on details surrounding their surprise union.
Jennifer's marriage to Marc Anthony was so unexpected that it caught the public and press off guard. They questioned if Jennifer had made a mistake by rushing to the altar to wed Marc Anthony. Perhaps only time would tell, but according to Jennifer, despite the public skepticism, marrying Marc just felt right. In her book, she writes, quote, "I knew that if I called him from Siberia in the middle of the night and needed him, he'd be there. I knew that he loved and cared about me that much. It was like the world stopped when it came to me. He's Puerto Rican. I'm Puerto Rican. We both grew up in New York. Me in the Bronx and Marc in East Harlem, where my mother grew up. We thought that this was where everything was supposed to lead, that we were meant to end up together. All the heartache and pain of my recent breakup couldn't have been for nothing. Could it? Maybe I had to go through the bad so I could end up with the person I was meant to be with all along. Marc was the guy who swooped in and made me feel loved at my lowest point. I loved him for that, and I felt like I could love him forever. After all the turmoil, I felt like I had found my rock, the man whom I was going to spend the rest of my life with."
High-profile relationships and even higher-profile breakups, Lopez has found love with singer Marc Anthony. They had a very private wedding on June 5th, but this time she's decided to be much more guarded about her personal life.
I decided that that's the new approach I'm taking. It's not about, you can't know about me, I don't want anybody in my life. It's not that. It's just a quality of life and protecting that which is sacred to you, that which you love, you know?
You seem really happy.
Yeah.
Right? You look fantastic.
Thank you.
Is your life as good?
My life is better now than it's been in a long time. And I think it's when you go through tough things that when you come out the other side, when you start, you feel like you never will. But when you do, it's like everything is brighter and clearer than before. I'm happy that I have love in my life and health and family and a great career. I've been lucky enough, even through all of this stuff, somehow survive, you know, and I'm grateful for that.
New movie, new marriage, new life. What's the one word that comes to mind when you wake up in the morning? How do you wake up?
I wake up happy. I'm not bad to wake up in the morning. I've been really working hard lately, so I'm a little bit tired.
And I'm trying to imagine what it is. I saw you on Oprah the other day. Mm-hmm. Saw you on David Letterman late last night.
I know.
You said to Oprah something interesting. You said that you and Marc have so much in common because of Puerto Rican, same references. Do you wake up speaking Spanish ever?
It's funny. I don't remember mentioning that.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
I just wondered, do you speak Spanish at home?
Do I speak Spanish at home?
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not just when you're making an emphatic, angry point.
No. I grew up speaking English, so. But we speak Spanish a lot, yeah.
You know, we've been talking about this because I want to raise a serious issue because I think it is serious, and I think it's really serious, especially for actors in public life. We're all in this cycle together. You said to me not too long ago, you said, I want a line of privacy.
Yeah,
I want
sure.
some life for myself. I know that people are reporting all the time on it. We know the people out there watching want to know more and more and more. If you were gathering all of the people in the press in the room, say, I understand your job, but here's where I want you to draw the line. Have you ever thought what you would say about what is right? Where is the line?
Well, it's funny. You know, I've done about maybe 250 interviews in the past week, literally, you know, for the movie and everything. And, you know, the focus for me during that time and what I got to talk about a lot, because every single person asked me about my personal life. And I understand that in the past, yeah, I've been very open about it, but I realized, and I actually did say this on Oprah, is that I had to draw some boundaries for myself. And I don't want to talk about that anymore, because the reason I'm in the public eye to begin with is because I make movies and I make music, you know, and I dance and I sing and I act. And I just want to get the focus back on that, because it was a much better time than what I've been through in the past couple of years. And I just learned that I needed to do that for myself, for my life.
So are you able to say, okay, I know it's their job to cover it and to ask it, but I'm just not going to talk about it? Or do you actually say they should stop covering it? Do you want to say to everybody with all the magazines?
You can't control everybody else. And I wouldn't fool myself into thinking that I could. The only thing I can do for myself is take responsibility and say, you know what? I'm not going to answer that anymore.
Jennifer and Marc's romance would take Hollywood by storm, and everyone weighed in, including some of Jennifer's former lovers. The first to react was Diddy. In an interview with Access Hollywood, he said, quote, "If she's in love with somebody and that makes her happy, I'm happy for her. I'm glad that she found someone new, but she'll always be important to me. That's my girl for life." Jennifer's second husband, Cris Judd, would be caught off guard by the news, but here's what he had to say. Quote, "You know what? I wish her and Marc the best. And hey, if it's true to her heart, then by all means. Jen, Marc, I wish you the best and happiness. Definitely." Lastly, Jennifer's ex-fiancé, Ben Affleck, would do an interview with the BBC, where he would, for the first time, address their relationship and breakup. He said, quote, "It's sort of the vague calm you get after vomiting, where the vomit itself is rather unpleasant, but when it's over, it does bring you a strange peace." When asked to give his thoughts on Jennifer's recent marriage to Marc Anthony, Ben Affleck gave the couple 2 thumbs up. Ben Affleck comparing his relationship and subsequent breakup to Jennifer Lopez as the relief you get after vomiting was surprising to the public, given the fact that just a few months prior, he and Jennifer were such a high-profile couple. And during their romance, Ben Affleck frequently spoke highly of her. But at this point, Ben was done with the Benifer frenzy and had already moved on in his love life. Shortly after news broke of Jennifer Lopez and Marc Anthony's wedding, it would be reported that Ben Affleck was dating his 2003 Daredevil co-star, Jennifer Garner. For context, Jennifer Garner and Ben Affleck first met in the summer of 2000 when they filmed the movie Pearl Harbor. 2 years later, in the summer of 2002, they would work together again, this time in the film Daredevil. According to Ben, though they were both in respective relationships at the time, they couldn't help but fall in love. Ben said, quote, "We met on Pearl Harbor, which people hate, but we fell in love on Daredevil." In a resurfaced clip from January 2003, Jennifer Garner, Ben Affleck, and some of their Daredevil cast members were featured on an episode of Dinner for Five. In that episode, Jennifer Garner and Ben Affleck are seen having interesting interactions that have since been dubbed, quote, "the moment Jennifer Garner fell in love with Ben." It's important to note that at this time, Ben was engaged to Jennifer Lopez, and Jennifer Garner was married to Scott Foley.
I
like I might have to kick your ass.
There we go.
Why? You don't want her to kick your fucking ass, man.
Why? I was just
she can kick your ass.
I know, that's
but she's
what I'm
protected.
saying.
She's very protective of him.
She can kick your
More protective of him than me. I'll kick your fucking ass.
No, you won't. You actually fucking won't, man.
No, she is.
I do a take with her in the fight. I do a take and she's going, I think I'm not happy with that one. I'm like,
I'm not
I just want it clear.
He's a good egg, I know. So what, you're on that?
I mean, look at his face. I'm so glad I did not test with you. I just think that there's no more miserable experience.
What, testing?
Yeah, and
Had you tested to be in the movie?
No.
You've done a year's worth of alias. I imagine that's one long test for them.
No, but, you know, it's for your comfort, really. And I don't know if I've ever thanked you for not making me test, but I'm so grateful for not having to test.
Please. I thought you were great. I wanted you to do it. You know, I mean, we couldn't have been more like the avid representatives at the reel-to-reel editing convention. Right, you know what I mean? We showed up. We're like, hey, this is great. Writing is fun. And it was all these guys that ground out there, just oh, fuck you.
On March 23rd, 2003, 2 months after the Dinner for Five episode aired, Jennifer Garner separated from her husband, and on May 9th, she filed for divorce. Despite reports claiming that Jennifer Garner had an affair with Ben Affleck, Garner's ex-husband, Scott Foley, has gone on the record to state that fame was to blame, not a third party. Jennifer Garner would finalize her divorce from Scott in 2004 and subsequently move on with Ben Affleck. In October of that year, she and Ben would make their first public appearance as a couple. The following year, in April 2005, Ben popped the question to a pregnant Jennifer Garner, and on June 29th, the couple wed. Upon Ben and Jennifer Garner's nuptials, they would welcome their first child together in December of that year.
How's the baby? How's the baby?
The baby's lovely.
Delicious. Can I just say she looks like such a cutie? I see some blurry pictures of you at a coffee shop holding her. It's fabulous to me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What's her name?
She's 9 months. Her name is Violet.
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 Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks
Are you
very
changing
much.
diapers?
When called upon, yeah. Everyone acts like it's the most traumatic thing in the world. You know what I mean? I am very good at it. I'm kidding. I'm lying. No. I'm getting in trouble.
Yeah.
I'm not that good at it. You know what I mean?
Why?
Well, I think I find the odor noxious.
Really?
Yeah. There's that.
Interesting, because a mother never finds
and my
her
wife is
baby's
like,
poop noxious.
Boom, boom,
Exactly.
Bing,
You don't.
He calls me in to be the closer. Like, he'll start it, and then he's
Right.
like, Elizabeth! And then I come in to be the closer. I'm like, okay, I'll just snap it up.
Closer.
Yeah. Has your life completely changed? Because I know for me, as soon as that kid was placed in my arms, it was like the world became a different thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is very different. It's definitely reorganized your priorities. It's fabulous. It's great. You know, you hear all these cliches, and I think they're cliches because obviously they're true. Yeah.
Yes.
It's wonderful. It makes you happy all the time.
Were you nervous, though, the first time you were alone with her? I think a lot of dads are kind of like...
A little bit. I definitely involved myself a little bit. I was wanted to be super dad, so it's kind of more, my issue was like following around with nothing to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
no, just wait, stand here, okay, good. You know?
With Ben Affleck busy getting married and starting a family, Jennifer Lopez would release her fourth studio album titled Rebirth to mixed reviews. According to Jennifer, she wanted to distance herself from the Benifer circus and the JLo diva persona that had now defined her. This was an opportunity for Jennifer Lopez to show the world that she was a new woman. She was happily married to Marc Anthony and that the past was now behind her. Unfortunately, however, Jennifer couldn't run from the past, as she and her first husband, Ojani Noa, would find themselves in a years-long legal battle. In 2005, Ojani Noa and Jennifer Lopez reached a settlement agreement in which Ojani was awarded $125,000 for wrongful termination when Jennifer unexpectedly fired him from her restaurant back in 2002. As part of the settlement agreement, Ojani had to sign a confidentiality agreement that prohibited him from disclosing information about his relationship with Jennifer. But despite Ojani signing the agreement in 2005, Jennifer would sue him the following year for breaching it, when she was made aware that he was shopping around a tell-all book, a documentary, and home movies that detailed their relationship. According to reports, Ojani's tell-all book alleged that Jennifer had multiple affairs during their marriage. He even named Marc Anthony, Jennifer's husband at the time of the lawsuit, as one of the men she had an affair with. In the lawsuit filing, Jennifer claimed that in an attempt to extort her, Ojani offered to not publish the book in return of $5 million. Because his documentary, along with his tell-all book, breached the confidentiality agreement, Jennifer sued Ojani in 2006. The following year, a decision would be made regarding the lawsuit. Jennifer would be awarded $545,000. A permanent injunction was awarded against Ojani that barred him from, quote, criticizing, denigrating, casting in a negative light or otherwise disparaging or causing disparagement to Jennifer. Ojani was also ordered to hand over all copies of materials related to his book, as well as any home videos in his possession. After his loss, Ojani would make his rounds and give interviews in an attempt to defend himself. According to Ojani, he never had an explicit tape of Jennifer because it never existed. He claims that certain people in the industry got in her ear and purposely misled her. As he put it, his documentary and book deal was not about bashing Jennifer, but rather a story about how he, a young Cuban immigrant, made it in America.
Grabaste varios videos.
Exacto.
La luna de miel,
Exacto.
El viaje a
Cuba.
El matrimonio. El matrimonio.
Exacto.
¿Cuánto tiempo tienes de cinta, de video?
Hay 11 horas nada más.
11 horas.
11
y con
horas.
ese material tú quieres hacer una película.
Bueno, parte de ese material, exacto, es parte del documental y lo la película, ¿no? Que llevo ya 4 años fajado en corte con eso.
¿Cuál es el propósito de ese documental?
El propósito es aclarar mi imagen que ya hace 5 años que ha estado dañada por el equipo de ella de abogado, mi imagen que ha sido manipulada.
Pero ella, ¿por qué no quiere que salga eso?
No sé,
Si
porque
hay...
le han dicho que son pornográficos. Y ella sabe que son pornográficos. Y entonces para mí es un mensaje que yo quiero darle a los latinos, a esa gente, y quiero yo prácticamente hacerlo para ya cerrar ese capítulo y seguir con mi vida.
Pero ella sabe que no son pornográficos, no sé si es que tiene una copia de esos videos.
Sabe, entonces... ella tiene copia.
No hay ni una así donde sale el calzoncito.
No, normal. ¿Nada? Son cosas normales que es lo que a mí me ha extrañado porque lo sabe que no hay nada sexual. Y entonces ahora...
¿No grabaste nunca nada así?
Los abogados, no.
Nada, ¿no?
Y él está ahí.
No, pero tal vez sí, porque por eso tal vez ella tenía miedo de que fueran pornográficos al principio.
Sí, y eso se aclaró en la corte al principio.
El fin último de hacer este video, esta película, es tú reivindicar tu nombre y tu persona, o tener un beneficio económico.
No, también.
Porque si es un beneficio económico, pues decirle a JLo, ¿sabes qué? Voy a ganar tantos miles de dólares, págamelos y se acabó.
Claro, o meter videos de Marc Anthony intercalados, por ejemplo.
O darle su parte a ella por usar su imagen.
Y esa es la idea, hacerlo, firmarlos y sacarlo. Y para mí es lo que siempre he dicho, es para abrir puertas, para aclarar mi imagen, para que la gente lo vean y después que me critiquen, ¿me entiendes? No ahora sin ver lo que hay.
In 2007, Jennifer's legal battle with Ojani had finally come to an end, and she was ready to put it behind her and get back to what was important. That year, following the release of their movie El Cantante, Jennifer Lopez and Marc Anthony embarked on a North American tour to mixed reviews. While critics praised Marc Anthony's performance, they slammed Jennifer's. The New York Times writes, quote, "No one expects Miss Lopez to morph into a lung-busting powerhouse, and in some ways her shaky voice may add to her appeal. On stage of an arena, the A-list star is once more an underdog, getting by with a little help from her band and her husband and a few thousand friends." Criticism that Jennifer received during this tour reinforced something that she had been feeling ever since she married Marc: overshadowed. But Jennifer couldn't dwell on these feelings for too long, as she and Marc had big news. They were expecting not one, but two.
Well, Marc and I are expecting. I did not expect her to say anything. that now that we're ready and we're gonna go away and have a little bit of time alone, it was the right time.
After months of being tight-lipped about their pregnancy, Jennifer Lopez and Marc Anthony welcomed twins, a boy and a girl, in February 2008. For Marc, the twins would be his 5th and 6th child, as he was already a father to 4 from previous relationships. With the birth of their babies, Jennifer and Marc seemed to have it all. From the outside looking in, they were a match made in heaven. But according to Jennifer behind the scenes, their marriage was anything but a fairy tale. In her book, she writes, quote, "Things between Marc and me weren't perfect, of course. Our marriage was never the kind to glide along peacefully. From the beginning, it was tumultuous, passionate, and explosive. I knew we had problems, but we loved each other, and we were trying. And I wanted more than anything to have a family. This family. So I was willing to ignore whatever wasn't going well, for the greater good of preserving it. Marc and I weren't the only ones who really wanted this marriage to work. Our fans were invested in it too. They wanted to see it last. Marrying Marc was like the happy ending, the twist in the story that turned me back in people's minds from JLo, the diva, to Jennifer Lopez, married woman. Benifer was gone, and now there was just Marc and Jennifer, the couple that was meant to be. I didn't want to give that up, because now I had lined up everything I needed for the big Hollywood life. The movies, the records, the glamour, and now the marriage that would really last forever, with the man who'd rescued me when I was lost."
You talk about your first real heartbreak.
Right.
And you don't talk about it in depth at all.
No.
But you do bring it.
No, I wrote one line.
One
and this
line.
is all over the press.
Right.
I was like, I should have never wrote the damn line.
It's about Ben.
It's about Ben.
You said that was your first real heartbreak.
It was my first big heartbreak.
Yeah.
Like I had been heartbroken like when I was like 13 years old, my first puppy love type thing.
Yeah.
And I had, breakups and things like that, but I never felt heartbroken until we called off that wedding. You know what I mean? It was really devastating to me. I don't know, maybe because it was so public and I really felt like, I had found somebody great and he had found somebody great and we thought we could make it work. And it was like outside things really played into that relationship in a way that I could have never expected. I was at the height kind of like the JLo days and the fame was really big at that moment. And it was just a hard situation, and it was a devastating breakup.
Right. And one thing that you say you do is that after a breakup, you quickly meet someone else. You say that sometimes some people turn to drugs or drinking. You don't even do any of that.
Yeah, no. People go out and party and do all that stuff. No, not me.
What do you do?
Well, I feel like we try to anesthetize ourselves because we're in so much pain, right? So we try to find something that eases the pain. And I always found comfort in another person.
When you were hurting after Ben, you were kind of on your knees a little bit and Marc stepped in. One time, I was married at one time and we had a breakup in our relationship. And I still remember this. I was sitting in the laundromat on the floor watching my clothes go around.
Yes.
And a police officer walked in and he said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "No, I am not okay."
Yeah.
And I was dating my then husband at the time, but he rescued me. I'll never forget it. And I started dating him, and I dated him.
The cop! Yes! I love it. Yes. Help me. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Because it's not just me. Okay?
But
I'm just out here on Broadway, talking about it. Go ahead.
But when he saves you, and then suddenly you get stronger.
Yeah.
And then the guy who's a rescuer is wondering how you changed. Now I'm whole because now I've gotten over the pain and now he's looking at me and he wants to continue saving me. And that's not who I am.
I'm done.
Anymore.
Yeah. Right.
Right. It's over.
Right.
So sometimes you have to you talk about meeting someone when you're healthy and whole.
But that's the key. You have to heal on your own.
Yeah.
And nobody can do that for you. And that's again, something that I've been learning and just learning and on the journey of, but you have to be healthy and whole on your own first before you can allow somebody to add to that happiness. You should be happy all by yourself. You should have a great life and be full and, you know what I mean? And not to feel like you're missing something.
Despite putting on a united front publicly, tension between Marc and Jennifer wouldn't die down after the birth of their babies, as things would only escalate. According to Jennifer, not only did she feel lost in her marriage, but she felt extremely insecure within herself. She had put her career on the back burner to focus on being a mother and a wife. But after 3 years of dedicating herself to her family, Jennifer felt like a shell of her former self. In the midst of self-doubt and utter despair, Jennifer received an offer that would change her life in more ways than one, when the reality competition American Idol came knocking at her door. It was 2011, and season 10 was about to begin, when Jennifer signed on as one of the judges on the hit show. And according to Jennifer, this opportunity would change her life. She writes, quote, "At 42, movie roles were not knocking down my door. I really felt like I didn't know what my value was anymore. After the babies were born, I began to take stock of the rest of my life, including my career and my relationships, and I was beginning to see things more clearly. When the chance to do Idol came up, I welcomed the opportunity to reclaim some of my individuality. When people started watching that season of American Idol, they were seeing something they weren't expecting to see. People were looking for a diva, but they found the mama instead, and it turned out to be the biggest, most important thing of all. It had been so long since I'd felt like just Jennifer." So many exciting things were starting to happen. People were loving the show. I had a new album coming out. And when On the Floor, the first single, leaked right before Idol aired, it shot up the charts. It seemed like every day something great and new came along. I felt an amazing new energy in my life and career, the kind of energy I hadn't felt in a long time. In so many ways, Idol was like a reinvention, a reintroduction into the public eye. I was finding my own voice, my own power again. It got me back in touch with myself.
Do you think it had a positive impact on your career? Because a lot of people say they didn't really get to know who Jennifer Lopez was until they saw her in that environment.
It's true.
It humanized you.
It did.
Is what your agent might say.
Yes, is what the press might say. But it was funny because I always felt, because I was in the public eye, that people, even though they wrote a lot of things about me and painted a certain picture of me, I always felt like people knew who I was. Like they could feel my heart. But I realized that until American Idol, they really didn't, until they saw it in front of them and they really saw, oh, she's a person, she loves music, she's super emotional, she cares, like all of those things that they, I guess, like you said, it made me more human to them. And it did so much for me, not just in my career, because it kind of it was like a reintroducing me after having the babies and being away for a while, into the public eye again, but also for my self-esteem. Because, you know, you hear things in the press over and over about how you're not a nice person or you're demanding things, even though you're not, even though it's not true, it makes you feel bad about yourself. You know, it wears you down. And I had realized that I wasn't feeling great about myself. And then when I was on Idol and people were seeing me and they were like, we like her. It honestly, it made me, I was like, oh my God, people like me. That's nice.
Jennifer's role as a judge on American Idol would revive and revamp her entire career. In February 2011, People magazine named Jennifer its first most beautiful woman in the world. Her record was #1. Her video was #1. And she was on the #1 television show in America. According to Jennifer, she felt like she was on top of the world. But despite her career being at such a high, her marriage to Marc Anthony had no hope in sight. In March, the bubble that Jennifer had been relishing in would burst when Marc Anthony uttered 3 words. In her book, she writes, quote, "I'm not happy." Marc was in the middle of venting to me about things between us that had been bothering him, and I was sitting there trying to figure out where he was going with it. Then he said it again. "I'm not happy. I'm here because we have a family, because we're trying to keep it together, but I'm not happy." I started crying. I really thought I had done everything I could to satisfy him in every way that I could, as a wife, as a partner, and as a mother to his children. But the truth was, I had never even stopped to think about whether I was happy. It was like a light bulb finally turned on in my head. What sense did it make to keep suppressing my own feelings of what was missing in the relationship? How long did I need to keep trying to make someone happy who was telling me flat out that he wasn't? I was still stuck in the same pattern I had been stuck in my entire life. My own happiness and sense of self-worth still depended on how happy he was. So when Marc stated so clearly that he wasn't happy, it broke me down completely. For so many years, I had managed to convince myself that if I worked at my relationships hard enough, I could always fix everything, make things better. But now, I was finally strong enough to identify not only that I couldn't, but that wasn't the point. The point was that my happiness mattered too.
It was at the peak of your most beautiful woman in the world, People magazine. Your #1 song and video in the world.
Yeah, #1 song and video, #1 television show with American Idol. You know,
everything was going right.
Everything was on the surface. Everything seemed like it was perfect and wonderful, and in a sense, it was. But my personal life was kind of crumbling, and I didn't want to face it. And in that moment, I had no choice.
And he said to you, he was not happy.
Yeah, that was a few months earlier.
Right, and you were trying to fix
and I was kind of like trying to hang on.
Well, when you're an optimist, and you seem like you are, you always think that you can make it better. I'm an optimist. It's going to be better.
Right. Well, that was that moment when that happened. I realized I was like, well, if he's not happy,
then I'm not happy.
I'm not happy. You know, not because he's not happy, but because I haven't been happy for a long time, and I'm not facing it. And he was brave enough to say it first. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so it was like, well, hold on. There's something super wrong here, you know? And the slow realization of that and trying to go, okay, well, we need to get back on track.
By May of 2011, Jennifer and Marc's marriage was hanging on by a thread. Remnants from their March conversation loomed in the back of Jennifer's head, making her feel conflicted and uneasy about the state of her marriage. Despite their issues, Jennifer and Marc were scheduled to perform at American Idol's finale show and were determined to make it their best performance yet. But events leading up to the show would only reinforce to Jennifer how insignificant she felt in her marriage to Marc. In her book, Jennifer details how this performance would solidify to her that her marriage to Marc was over. She writes, quote, 2 days before the finale, Marc and I went down to Hollywood Walk of Fame, where Simon Fuller was getting a star. Listen, Simon said, whatever you want to do on the finale, we want you to do it. We want you to be happy. Maybe you guys can do something together, he suggested. I looked at Marc and said, well, do you want to do something together? And although I felt vulnerable in that moment, I was hopeful that it was a chance for us to reconnect and bring us close again. Sure, he said. We'd have to pull it together really fast, though. Since Marc's band was being flown in, I suggested we do one of his songs. How about Aguanile? I can sing it with you, I said. I can come in on the second verse and we can do the chorus together. But Marc disagreed. In a very matter-of-fact way, he said, you know this is a guy's song, and suggested that maybe he should sing and I could maybe dance. I wasn't sure about it, but I reluctantly agreed. We choreographed a beautiful, sexy dance for me to do, where I came in only after Marc had already sung the first half of the song. Marc was amazing, and it turned out great. But later, I realized that performance should have been the culmination of an amazing year in my life and my career. And for some reason, it just wasn't. It's true that sometimes when you're trying so hard to make a relationship work, you can sacrifice things that are important to you. And that's exactly what I was doing. When I look back, the finale feels like the end of an era. Marc and I were magic on stage, but that was the last time we would perform together as husband and wife. The Bible tells us that love is patient, love is kind. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It doesn't keep score. Unfortunately, too many of the relationships I'd been in didn't quite fit that description.
So you do talk about there was a one day in particular when you knew that your marriage was kind of over.
Right.
You were with your mom and you were with Ben.
Right.
Describe the moment, because I think we all know when one of our relationships is over, but what?
Well, we don't want to, well, this is what we do, right? We like kind of deny it for a long time. We're just like, this is not happening. Yeah. Okay, we're going to get through this part. It's going to be better. And then, you know, slowly but surely, you just can't suppress that feeling forever. And things happened and it was leading up to it. And then I was just, like I said, I write in the book, I was in the desert one day doing a L'Oreal shoot. And my mom just happened to be visiting, thank God. You know, things, you know, maybe it wasn't such an accident. And Benny was there on the shoot. And I just started having all of these crazy thoughts and fearful, you know, like afraid, like anxiety. And it was just it coming to the surface. Yeah. Like I couldn't hold it down anymore. And there I was about to go on set and I was just like, something's happening. I don't know what's happening. And it was just an anxiety attack of some sort or a nervous moment. And I was like, I just feel like I'm going crazy. I don't know what's happening. Help me, you know? And my mom was like, what's wrong? You're scaring me. I was like, no, I don't know. And I was like, and I started talking and all of a sudden I said, I don't think I can be with Marc anymore. And she was like, I think they all knew it was coming, but they didn't know. And Benny was like, okay. And I just burst into tears. That was the sentence that needed to come out. You know what I mean? Like I was talking all this stuff, but then when that sentence came out.
Did you feel relief then, finally?
Well, I started crying. So that, you know, that's kind of a release, but it didn't feel great. It was the beginning of the end and the beginning of a very difficult time.
What did you lose that day?
I lost that dream, you know. Believe it or not, and I know Marc, you know, is now it's, you know, everybody knows he's getting engaged, he's getting married, and I'm so happy for him. And so it's hard, you know, to bring up all this stuff feels like, why are we talking about this? Because it is in the past. But the truth is we had a family and we did plan on being together for 40 or 50 years. He used to talk about that all the time. And that was our goal. So that day I had to give up that dream. And I think that was the hardest part of it.
When news broke that Marc Anthony and Jennifer Lopez had separated after 7 years of marriage, the public was shocked and didn't understand what went wrong. But it wouldn't take too long for stories to come out dissecting their relationship. Immediately following news of their split, rumors emerged that Marc Anthony had had an affair with his Hawthorne co-star, Jada Pinkett Smith. An insider told In Touch the following, quote, Will has been increasingly concerned about the relationship between Jada and Marc. Will expressed worry to some close friends that there was more than just on-set chemistry between Jada and Marc. According to the source, Will was suspicious enough that in August, he dropped in unannounced to the couple's home and found Marc and Jada together. Will left crying and was very upset. A former associate of Will's recently did an interview with Tasha K, where he claimed that after Will walked in on Jada and Marc having intercourse, Will physically attacked Jada to the point where she needed reconstructive facial surgery. It's important to note that despite these allegations, Marc, Will, and Jada have all denied these claims. They've gone on the record and said that these rumors are baseless and completely false. But Marc Anthony's alleged affair with Jada wouldn't be the only time he was accused of cheating on Jennifer Lopez. It was reported that back in 2009, Marc Anthony allegedly cheated with a flight attendant and that the affair nearly cost him his marriage. In addition to the cheating accusations, Marc would also be accused of, quote, being extremely jealous and controlling. Jennifer's then stylist told reporters the following, quote, Marc was too controlling. He didn't like her wardrobe choices. Marc is very controlling. In the beginning, she liked that because he stood up to her. And in the early days, he was very much in love with her, and she was with him. In an interview with ABC, here's what Marc had to say.
For the past 7 years, Jennifer Lopez and Marc Anthony have been one of Hollywood's hottest couples. But 6 weeks ago, they announced that they would be ending their marriage. Tonight, in a Nightline exclusive, Marc Anthony speaks out for the first time since their announcement to ABC's John Quinones.
Do you want this divorce?
You know, it's a decision that we made jointly. And that's how I'll answer that.
What can you tell us about what went wrong in the marriage?
I'll tell you that it wasn't, some sensationalistic happening.
Infidelity?
No, absolutely not. Nothing sensationalistic.
He's baffled and angry, he says, at the tabloid reports that he broke up the marriage with affairs.
It was the flight attendant.
It was the flight attendant. It was the pilot, I heard. It was this guy sitting next to me in a rehab in Houston, and I've heard it all.
There's some ugly rumors out there.
The most difficult of all, he says, rumors of an affair with Jada Pinkett Smith, wife of Will Smith and his co-star on the TV show Hawthorne. It's a rumor that the Smiths, like Marc, have denied.
When something like that happens, it's laughable. We're here, we're laughing, we're like, wow, because we've been friends for years. Jada, Jennifer, me, him for years. What bothers me is the effect it has on family. To Will and Jada's circle and their children and their relatives and their loved ones.
The reason for Marc's breakup with Jennifer Lopez was much simpler, he says. Their marriage just no longer worked.
It was a realization on both our parts. So, it wasn't shocking. These things happen. These things happen.
What do you tell Max and Emmy now, 3 years ago?
I'm always going to be daddy. You understand what I'm saying? And they're used to me traveling and Jennifer traveling, and we Skype all the time, and trying to maintain that presence. They're still young. You know what I mean?
Do you love Jennifer?
I'll always love Jennifer. Yeah.
Jennifer would never blatantly discuss Marc's alleged infidelity or the details surrounding their split, but she did say this in a September 2011 interview with Vanity Fair. Quote, I will always respect Marc as a singer and performer. We actually work great together, and he was always very supportive. Together, we could make magic, and we did. He will always be in our lives. He will always hold a special place in my heart as the father of my children. And out of respect for our family, I will keep private the details of our personal life. Sometimes we don't realize that we are compromising ourselves. To understand that a person is not good for you, or that that person is not treating you in the right way, or that he is not doing the right thing for himself. If I stay, then I am not doing the right thing for me. I love myself enough to walk away from that now.
You say, I've never gotten a black eye or a busted lip, but I've been in relationships where I've felt abused in one way or another, mentally, emotionally, verbally. I know what it feels like for your soul to be diminished by the way your loved one is treating you. Maybe it's a push or a shove or a nasty word that stays with you. The scars might not be visible, but they run just as deep.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
I mean, we always think of domestic violence and abuse in that way in black eyes, but sometimes the emotional or psychological abuse or somebody just kind of putting you down all the time or telling you all the things that you're doing wrong all the time instead of the things you're doing right. Relationships should be nourishing and supporting. It has to nourish and support you. If it's not that, it's not healthy. And you have to do that for each other. That's a healthy relationship. And I think so many times, so many of us are in relationships where we suffer that and we don't say anything and we kind of just let it wound our soul, or we go, oh, that's how we are.
Yeah.
No, that's not how you should be.
No.
It's not how it should be.
And sometimes it starts off as a little thing.
Sure.
And then once you take it the first time.
Oh, yeah.
Then it's worse. And
that's what I'm learning now. Yeah. That's where I'm at in my life now, like boundaries, like setting boundaries of what is comfortable for me and what's uncomfortable for me, what I like and what I don't like, which again, when you're not totally in touch with yourself and the love inside of you and being your own keeper, you can do that. You'll let something slip by.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And be like, oh, we're having a fight right now. It's like, you know what? I don't like that. Please don't do that to me. And if you're going to do that, you can go do it to somebody else.
How were you sure it was time to end it with Marc?
It was so many things. It wasn't an overnight thing.
It wasn't one thing.
It wasn't an overnight thing. There wasn't one thing that happened. It was a slow realization. And we worked very hard on our marriage. We really did. Neither one of us wanted it to end. But at the end of the day, again, and I would never divulge any details about our really private, intimate life. It just didn't.
Sure.
It just didn't work out.
Were you just cringing about what the papers were going to say in the tabloids?
Oh, God,
were you like, oh my gosh, that must have been heavy on you. There was levels when I when I made the decision. I was like, okay, it's not gonna work. It was first getting to the decision of like, okay, this is happening. He and I are not working. Oh God, what about the kids? That was a hard hurdle to get over. Is it better for them? Is it not better for them? Do I just brave it out? What do I do? Then there was that hurdle, and I was like, no, this is gonna be better for them too. And then it was, oh God, now we have to make the announcement. Now everybody's gonna know about it. Now they're really going to get on us. Oh God, we didn't do it. We thought we were going to do it and we didn't do it. And, and it's all of that. And it's just, and now we got to tell our families, it's just like, there's so many stages that I needed to get by. And then once it was all done, then it was just like living with it.
Upon Jennifer's split from Marc, she thrust herself back into work, releasing her 7th studio album titled Love, and filming the movie What to Expect When You're Expecting. Jennifer would also renew her contract with American Idol and resume her role as a judge for season 11. Though Jennifer had a lot on her plate at this time, the resurgence of her career had her on a high. But the biggest work of Jennifer's life wouldn't involve music, movies, or Idol. It involved her taking a hard look in the mirror and asking herself, what was she getting wrong? Following her split from Marc, Jennifer hired a therapist that helped her discover a few things about herself. In her book, she writes, quote, 1, I discovered I had low self-esteem, which I had never really pictured myself as having. 2, I worked on learning what integrity meant. And 3, I realized I wasn't recognizing the value of my own love and analyzing step by step relationships that went as far back as high school. I noticed I had never stopped to consider just how special my love was. I never stopped to look at myself and say, you know what? You're honest, you're generous, you're loving, and you're loyal. You deserve a love that is as pure and special and good as the one you are giving. My love has value. I have value. I was finally recognizing a really unhealthy pattern that had entrapped me for so many years. I was always looking for the other person to tell me I was great, so I could feel good about myself. I lived for that. I wanted their appreciation. Even worse, if they didn't give it to me, I tried even harder to prove it to them that I was worthy. I would keep trying to fix things and make them better, searching for that validation. I had always thought the reason it wasn't working had to be because I was doing something wrong. So no matter how I was treated or what the other person did in our relationship, all I cared about was getting his approval. In fact, that would sometimes become the glue that kept these relationships together. Ultimately, The love I wasn't giving myself, I was trying to get from others. In the weeks that followed, I worked really hard at internalizing what I had learned. Every night, I'd take a hot bath and listen to a CD of affirmations. Then, when I'd go to bed, I'd take it there and listen to it until I fell asleep. Over and over, I would say, "I love you, Jennifer. I really, really love you. You are worthy of love. This whole situation is easier than I thought it would be. Me and my babies live a happy, healthy, joyful life full of love." I felt at peace for the first time in a long time. There was nothing to search for or hope for in anyone else. I am complete all by myself, all on my own. I have all the love that I need.
There are a lot of things I think young girls reading your book are going to learn. One of them that struck me was when there was a setting where you were talking to your agent, your phone rings, it's your boyfriend, you take the call outside of a glass, and your agent is watching you speak to your boyfriend, and you're pleading or arguing or something, and your agent says to you when you came back in, "Oh, do you have self-esteem issues?"
Yeah.
And you thought to yourself,
crazy.
Nuts. Hello.
Crazy agent. Yeah.
But what did you...
But she was so right. Yeah, but listen, I hadn't even was thinking about things like that.
Right.
I'm like, what are you talking about? Like in the Bronx, we don't talk about stuff like that. So I was out in Hollywood and doing this, and I'm like, oh, these Hollywood people. They're going to want me to get a therapist. Like we don't do that. So it was, for me, just the beginning. I was like, again, like thinking back on it now, I go, wow, she was seeing a pattern in me that I wasn't even really ready to even recognize yet.
Well, because you had it together. I mean, you had an agent, for God's sake.
Well, I was in Hollywood. I had an agent, and I was working constantly, and I was doing great. I had an assistant. You know what I mean? Yeah. I was like, I had made it. So it was. I wasn't ready at that moment to really look at myself, I don't think. I was just trying to survive.
Jennifer's road to self-love would be a challenging yet much-needed one. 3 months after she announced her split from Marc Anthony, Jennifer performed at the Mohegan Sun Casino in Connecticut. After keeping a low profile for months, this would be Jennifer's first public performance since the announcement, and the public was curious to see what state she would be in. Jennifer would perform her song, One Love, which depicts Jennifer's past lovers. It's a very personal, intimate, raw song that when performed, it often leaves her feeling overexposed and vulnerable. And on this particular night, in October 2011, Jennifer became emotional on stage as she took the audience through the highs and lows of her love life. In her book, Jennifer narrates this performance and how it changed her life. She writes, "I was standing on stage, dressed in a white gown, and I sang the first verse of One Love.
Took a shot with the bad boy from the block, picked mine up right from the start, Mr. Monkey plays his part."
To my right, on the stage, stood a man wearing sunglasses and a gray suit, and a woman dressed in that famous green Versace gown, Puffy and me. Their images were projected on a giant screen above my head, so nobody could miss the point. I kept singing.
Back in the beginning, now round 2, try my luck with something new. We danced up till we said I do. My luck is bad, no for us to know me and you.
That was Cris and me, of course. To my left on the stage was a man with a shaved head, kneeling to propose to a woman. She had her hair in braids and was wearing a JLo shirt from the Love Don't Cost a Thing video, in which we'd famously danced together. Now the next verse. It's take 3. Could there be a part of me? Came and swept me off my feet. Went nowhere but kept the ring. Once again, I'm lonely. And to my right, a tall, handsome actor with a woman wearing a mint green dress, her hair pulled into a bun, just as I had dressed to go to the Oscars with Ben in 2003. And then finally, You sang to me, but I'm not sure. So worn out, but loved you so. Made me want to try once more, and I couldn't say no. To my left, a dashing man singing into a microphone while I danced around him in a short, sparkling dress, just as Marc and I had danced on the finale of American Idol only a few months earlier. As the song came to an end, I had seen my 4 great love affairs flash before my eyes. I looked over at the dancers playing Marc and me, and the whole thing felt so surreal. I got stuck there, looking at that image. As I sang the final line, "Is there one love?" That song was all about my past. It was over now, and I was looking toward the future.